Hello, everyone, and welcome to IVMF's VetNet and our session today with American Corporate Partners. My name is Ashley Squires, and I am the Manager of Alumni and Services for the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University. In this role, I lead our alumni engagement and relationship management efforts for the entire Institute's program alumni. And it is my pleasure to introduce today's special guests, joining us all from the New York City area. First, we have Tim Cochran, who serves as president of American Corporate Partners. ACP is a nonprofit dedicated to helping our returning veterans build meaningful careers. Working with volunteers nationwide, ACP offers veterans tools for long-term career development through mentoring, career counseling, and networking opportunities. Tim is a Marine Corps veteran and brings with him over 19 years of experience in senior management. So welcome, Tim. And next we have Matt Mezer, who currently works Johnson & Johnson's Military Veterans Leadership Development Program. He spent 5 years on active duty as an Army officer. Matt started his ACP mentorship in 2016, where he was paired with the Vice President of Global Regulatory Affairs of Ironwood Pharmaceuticals. His ACP mentorship, as well as ACP AdvisorNet, helped him land in his current role. And finally, Andrew Pinheiro, who currently works as a research analyst for BlackRock. Prior to joining BlackRock, Andrew spent 3.5 years on active duty as a military intelligence officer, followed by 1.5 years in the New York National Guard. He is a part of ACP program throughout 2016 after he left active service. Andrew is an Army veteran. So I will be monitoring this session with some assistance from my colleague Elvis Avdic, the IVMF's post-program support advisor, who will be monitoring the YouTube chat feature throughout the course of this session and will introduce any questions that comes through to our guests. So Tim, Matt, and Andrew, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Ashley.
So we're now going to give each of our guests a few minutes to run through a more in-depth introduction of themselves and their relation to ACP. So Tim, welcome to VetNet, and let's start with you.
Great, Ashley. Well, thank you for having us today. This is exciting, and we love getting the word out about ACP to our veterans. I've been at ACP now almost 2 years. Prior to that, I spent over 30 years on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. My claim to fame was I was the mine detector repairman in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and so I understood transition pretty well. When I came back to the States in the early 80s, there were no mine detector repairman jobs available in Lower Manhattan. So I was blessed to wind up at the New York Stock Exchange, put my Marine Corps training and discipline to work, and was able to have a nice long career. Found out about ACP a few years ago, started talking to our founder, Sid Goodfriend, about ACP, and wanted to come on board and help build this program. Today, my title is actually the president of the Citizens Program, because our basic model for ACP had always been corporate partners. Today, we have over 80 Fortune 500 companies that provide mentorships for ACP. So it's a one-on-one, big brothers, big sisters to the military, right? Only in our case, your little brother could be a 200-pound soldier or Marine. But it's all career development, and that's the work that we do. But you know, my own personal experience was when I got out of the Corps, I thought maybe I'd be a cop, a fireman, or a backhoe driver. I never thought I'd be going off to Bristol Myers Squibb, Johnson & Johnson, General Motors, or one of our other corporate partners. And Sid Goodfriend, our founder, understood that and said he was looking to create career paths in every career path that somebody from the military might want to go on. And that's where our Citizens Program was formed. So today, not only do we have all these mentorships on the corporate side, but whether you want to go into nonprofit, or you want to go to work in the government, or you do want to be a cop or a fireman, I can provide you with a mentor to help guide you down that career path and be with you over the course of a year. So we're having a ball at ACP. We really enjoy our work. You know, I have great colleagues. We've had over 3,000 men and women currently enrolled, and over 13,000 men and women have gone through our program and said it's changed their life. So for me, it's a daily basis. I get to talk to my band of brothers, guys like Matt and Andrew, and hear their stories about how they transition out. And let me tell you, it's really, really gratifying and rewarding.
Thank you, Tim, for that introduction. And Matt, let's throw it over to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ashley, for that warm introduction earlier. And Tim, a hard act to follow, but hopefully I don't let you down. Thank you, Tim, and your team at ACP for identifying myself as one of the 13,000 individuals that you mentioned as an adequate alumni to speak upon your program, as well as thank you, Ashley, and the IVMF for your programs and the services that you provide to military service members, as well as their spouses. I think that the resources both are best in class, and it's truly a privilege for me to speak to you today. I do not take this opportunity lightly, and hopefully I provide those tuning in and those who will eventually tune in some valuable insights on mentorship, as well as the value that American Corporate Partners brings. I graduated from the United States Military Academy in 2013 as an armor officer. I was stationed in sunny Colorado Springs at Fort Carson, Colorado, where I deployed twice to Afghanistan with the 4th Infantry Division. And then I culminated my military experience as an aide-de-camp in Space and Missile Defense Command. Where my career started with American Corporate Partners, so to speak, that intersection of what Tim mentioned as the soul searching, what I think it was mind clearance, if I understood correctly. Well, people aren't necessarily hiring company commanders to lead their organizations in Afghanistan, but they are hiring for leadership traits and other valuable things that military veterans bring to the table. And without a connection to a gentleman by the name of John Perez at Johnson & Johnson, he identified that I was a second lieutenant without a map and a compass. And he said, Matt, I think that you should join the American Corporate Partners. It should give you some insights. It should give you some guidance upon my transition, which I was about 2 years, about a year and a half looking at. And I'll tell you, if not for that conversation, if not for my mentorship with Mary Christian at American Corporate Partners, I would not be sitting where I am today. So really excited and privileged to have the opportunity to talk with you today. Thank you, Ashley, for just that, the opportunity.
Thank you, Matt. And last but not least, Andrew, take it away.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Tim. Tim had mentioned that there's a lot of alumni of American Corporate Partners who have had their lives changed through the program, and I'm very grateful to be one of those who has gone through the program and has had my life changed. I'm currently a research analyst at BlackRock, and I wouldn't have got here without the support of American Corporate Partners. So I guess just to briefly walk through my background, I commissioned from Officer Candidate School in 2013. I was an intel officer. I spent most of my time up at 10th Mountain Infantry Division at Fort Drum, New York. And I got out in December 2016, transitioned to the New York National Guard. And I was going through American Corporate Partners in 2016 with a mentor named Stephanie Ruiz, who's a managing director at Credit Suisse, which is a financial services firm within New York City, who was able to really help me understand what I wanted to do within finance and then be able to pivot into the role. And so, I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk about that, but thank you both for inviting me to be a part of this, and I look forward to it.
Thanks, Andrew. And thanks again, Tim and Matt. We'll now spend some time allowing our guests to respond to a series of prepared questions. For those of you viewing via the YouTube live session broadcast, please feel free to type any questions you have into the viewing pane at the right of your screen, and we'll make sure to leave time at the end to answer as many questions as we can. All right. So, Tim, let's start with you. What does ACP have to offer transitioning veterans?
Well, first off, we're the only program that provides a one-year experience for a one-on-one program over the course of an entire year. So, there's so many great programs out there, and but to have a mentor who spent 8, 10, 12 years in the career path of your choice, that's there for you on a monthly basis as you're transitioning out, as you get your job, working with you on your interviews, working on what your resume should look like, what courses you should be taking. It's absolutely invaluable, right? You have somebody who's already made the mistakes for you, and there's no onus on them other than to help guide you through the program. So whether you're coming out, you're already out a couple of years, you're looking to make a lateral move, or you're just trying to build your network and try to become a better worker at whatever you're doing. I can tell you one of the hardest things I found when I got to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, I knew I had great technical skills. I knew that I knew how to work really hard and do all that. But culturally, I had a major problem. All of a sudden, I was a poor kid from Brooklyn working with guys who had Princeton degrees and Wharton degrees, and they spoke a different language, to be honest. And so I was blessed that at the exchange, we had a bit of a Marine Corps mafia where guys would step up and they knew who I was and said, hey, look, kid, we'll bring you along for the ride. But today, you know, I was one of the lucky ones back then. The opportunity to take advantage of having somebody who, you know, for them, they see it as a great opportunity to be able to give back. In our case, 70% of our mentors never served, right? So they're looking to be able to help those who have put their lives on the line, who has put their careers on hold to go off and work and spend time in Afghanistan so that we're safe at home. And they take a lot of pride in that. And so it's a really incredible opportunity that the veterans should be taken care of and be taken advantage of.
Great, thank you for that. All right. Now we'll ask a question to the entire group, and we'll start off with Matt this time. So what common challenges do you see veterans facing when transitioning to the civilian workforce? And how do you think ACP helps to address these specific challenges?
Well, thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I really believe Tim put it perfectly, where the challenge is, as a veteran, you have a lot of these skills and you have a lot of these experiences that are very much atypical for anyone in our age and peer group, different than corporate America. And it's trying to find one where we fit in these skill sets and translating our military experience to civilian experience. But it's also coming from a veteran doing some soul searching and what our passions are, whether it's, you know, I want to transition from the military and make the most amount of money, and that's what my passion is, or is it purpose-driven work? It's finding your place in corporate America, which is very challenging. I believe that the statistics are overwhelming in terms of the number of people who transition after their first job because they might have just selected that first opportunity that came their way. But the American Corporate Partners, and what I believe makes it so valuable, is that you have a network by way of your formal mentorship. And if you choose, they also have this thing called the Advisor Net, which is similar to LinkedIn with warm introductions, a community of people, as Tim mentioned, who aren't necessarily with a military background. Some of them do, but they are there to help you. They're there to be a source of information for you and give you that opportunity to find, hey, you know, this is what wakes me up in the morning. This is what gives me a passion in my work. Whatever it may be, you're not right or wrong for whatever, you know, your passions are. And American Corporate Partners is that intersection that gives you that great opportunity to build those relationships and build that network. And like I said in my introduction, you know, without it, I can confidently say I wouldn't be here today at Johnson & Johnson. So thanks, Ashley.
Great, thank you. Andrew.
So maybe just to elaborate on a similar point that Matt made, one thing I noticed both for myself and for soldiers I worked with in the Army is that a lot of people have a sense of generally what they want to do. So I knew I wanted to work in finance. But finance is a really broad space, and I really wasn't that knowledgeable about the specific subcomponents of it. And so what my mentor, Stephanie Ruiz, helped me do was she walked me through, here's the 6 or 7 major buckets within finance, and explained what each one was. And then once I was able to say, okay, these 3 sound kind of interesting to me, these 3 or 4 I'm not that interested in, she connected me to people within her network from working in finance for like 20 years, who I was able to go and say, okay, your job sounds interesting, but I don't know that much about it. So walk me through a day in your life. Walk me through what you find really interesting, what's kind of frustrating about your job. And that's, I think, a network that I wouldn't have had otherwise if it wasn't for American Corporate Partners. And Matt also touched on AdvisorNet. So I actually received my current job through AdvisorNet. I had reached out to someone who was a BlackRock employee, and that person connected me to my manager, and obviously ended up hiring me. And so that's also a really interesting opportunity to have people with 10 or 20 years of experience who are almost certainly going to, respond to your LinkedIn message. I think if you go on LinkedIn and you message 100 people, you might get 10 responses. I messaged like 67 people on AdvisorNet. I think I probably got a 90% response rate. And they're there because they want to help veterans. And so, they're more than willing to take 20, 30 minutes, an hour of their time to walk through their job with you. And so, again, just generally, I think people sometimes have an idea of what they want to do, but not really the specifics of it. And American Corporate Partners, both through the mentorship and through AdvisorNet, give you an opportunity to really hone in on what you want to do. So I think, that to me is something I notice pretty frequently. But, I was talking with Bernard, who's an employee here earlier, and one thing he had mentioned is, so if you come into American Corporate Partners and you say, I know I want to work in finance, they will pair you with someone who works in finance. But what he really pressed upon me was, just say 2 months in, you decide, okay, that isn't what I wanted to do. That's a valuable lesson learned. And then they'll work with you to find someone, whatever area you are interested in, after you came to that realization. And so I wouldn't wait for you to find exactly what you want to do, because there's going to be opportunities to interact with people from a huge amount of industries.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Tim, do you have anything to add?
Just, the guys laid right into it. Look, your average guy is coming out of small town USA, right out of school. College probably wasn't an option for a lot of them. They don't know what the industries are at home. And so they head off to the military. They take advantage of the GI Bill. They now have a bachelor's degree. They have great skill sets. But what does that translate into corporate America? That's really where the mentor steps in. Some of the numbers that are out there, especially for your transitioning veterans, look, the national, for us, it's all about meaningful employment, right? The last thing I want to hear is that a veteran has to take the first job that comes down the pike just to take care of his needs. And some of the numbers for ACP, and I'd love to say it's me and my team, but it's not. It's the mentors that provide these. $44,000 is the average salary for a separating service men and women today. $44,000. Now, if you have a spouse and a couple of kids in America and you have to survive on $44,000, you're in trouble. Take it from me. Whether it's New York or Duluth, Minnesota, you're in trouble on 44 Gs. Now, the other part of it is almost over 50% of the veterans are leaving that first job they take out of the military because they're unemployed day one and they're taking whatever they can. And like I said, they're underemployed. I think Matt was talking about it. It's all about the underemployment of veterans. But 50% leaving those jobs within 8 months, 80% within 2 years. Now, look, I don't have to tell you, companies want veterans. They'll tell you across the board they want them, right? You got solid foundation. You know how to work in teams. You have great skill sets. The last thing they want to do is spend all this money on you and then all of a sudden you're leaving with 8 months. A couple of stats for ACP, and we're really proud of. Average salary of the veterans now, 70% of the veterans who went through our program in 16 and 17 said that they found meaningful employment as a direct result of the mentorship, either from the mentor's company, the work they did with the mentor, or from the mentor's network. $84,000 was our average salary for that 70% who found meaningful employment. Now, whether you're living in Duluth, Minnesota, or Brooklyn, New York, and you're coming out of the military and you have a family, you can survive on $84,000. Here's the other thing, and this is what companies are really inspired by. Of that percentage, 84% were still in those jobs after a year. 84%. So the mentors are there, that they're helping guide you, make the right decision to take the right job, right, so that you're not getting underemployed. At the same time, they're there for you, that you understand what the culture is before you take that job. Right, you know who works and fits in Johnson & Johnson or BlackRock, and so why would you introduce somebody who's not going to fit that culture? So companies love that also. I mean, it is just a great opportunity to have a mentor. It's going to make all the difference when it comes down to your transition.
So Ashley, if I could just add on to that really quick.
Yeah.
So whether it's finance or take a different profession, just say you want to be a teacher, right? there's a whole bunch of different areas within teaching. You could be a middle school teacher, a high school teacher, you could teach history, whatever it is. And something that I thought was very helpful in my process is, when you go in for an interview, if you're coming straight from the military and you haven't talked to a whole bunch of people, it's really hard to sound like you know exactly what you want to do. And even if you go through the process, that doesn't mean you're going to know exactly what it is. But I think you're going to be a lot further along in that process. You're going to be a lot more knowledgeable. And so, maybe you don't know exactly if you want to be a middle school teacher. But with that said, you can at least say, I talked to people who are middle school teachers, who are police officers or whatever it is, people in finance. And then you can say, I talked to a whole bunch of people, and this is why I think it would be interesting. I think that really helps differentiate you, and that's probably something that they might not expect, given that you don't have, direct experience in that field.
Great. That's great. Thanks so much, everyone. Impressive metrics too. Tim, I want to throw it back at you for one follow-up on that. How are you and I guess ACP internally working with mentors and veterans to make sure all of the challenges that we just identified are addressed?
So the really cool thing about ACP and really the magic to it, one, not only you get a mentor, but we have over 42 staff that are assigned to each and every one of those mentorships. So within 24 hours of filling out an application to ACP, the veteran is contacted by what we call an operational assistant, really a case manager, right? And that person is going to oversee that mentorship through the course of the year, so that the veteran is learning about setting goals. Like these guys said, you might not even, you might have a marketing degree, but you never worked a day in America. So you don't know really whether you want to go into marketing or not. And now all of a sudden we give you a mentor who is a marketing mentor who's listening to you, and they're telling you, maybe you should be thinking sales, or maybe you should be thinking going in a whole nother direction. That's where our OAs, our operational assistants, will be able to take you and help guide you and provide resources. Everything from the ability, not every mentor can sit down with you and go through your 10-page resume, which a lot of our veterans come to task with, right? And no hiring manager is even going to look at that resume. But then we provide you somebody who's going to be there for you also and going through those resources. And then skills, right? Not everybody knows how to communicate. These guys are great, right? They can get on a screen and talk to you, but that's not your average guy. Your average guy has never really spoke to somebody who's helping the guy, and they don't even know the right questions to ask. And that's where, our caseworkers, the men and women who we assign to each and every one of those mentorships can guide that process. Remember, as much as this is for the proteges and for the veterans, our model is that we only ask our mentors to come on board for a year. So at the end of that year, we need our mentors to have as good an experience as the protege, right? Because we need them to come back and do it again. And honestly, 99% of our mentors say that they're glad their company participated with ACP. 99%. The people who come into ACP to help guide our men and women as they transition out, they see this as such a great opportunity for themselves. But really, to keep that on track and to set goals, to provide resources, everything from the right questions to ask. We're talking about a year-long experience. Halfway through, Matt, you might have said, hey, I don't want to go in the street. I don't want to go into financial services, or I don't want to go in the medical space. They'll turn back to one of our staff, Bernard or Eric or one of the other staff, and say, hey, look, I'm looking for a mentor to go in a different direction, and we'll change gears. It's really important for us that the year is a productive year for the veteran as they transition out.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think the one-on-one partnership is really powerful. So now turning it over to the alumni, Andrew and Matt, to answer a few questions more about your experience so our viewers can get more of a firsthand feel. So Andrew, I'm going to kick it off with you if you don't mind. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with ACP's mentoring program?
Sure. So maybe just starting, when I first reached out to ACP, the way the process worked for me, and I think it's still how it works now, is you have a conversation with someone from the organization, and you get to fill out kind of what you're hoping to accomplish from it, what you're interested in, and then they assign you a mentor, and you have an introductory conversation with that mentor. For me, the way it basically worked was every 3 weeks or so, I would have a phone call with my mentor, a Skype call with my mentor. In between, we'd be exchanging emails, so probably 6 emails, 7 emails a month. And she gave me a lot of homework. So during that hour, it would basically be a follow-up, someone who's holding me accountable for what I needed to accomplish, which I thought was really valuable, because the way I probably would have went through this process is, I'm getting out of the Army in a year. A year's really far away. And so in 11 months, I'll figure it out, and we'll see where I end up. And so what my mentor helped me do, and ensured I did, was I had a actual plan to get there. And so, it was maybe an hour, 2 hours of talking with my mentor a month. But in between that, I had working on my resume, getting introduced to all the people that she connected me with. And so that took up, an additional couple hours, but I thought those were really valuable. Then in addition to that, there's AdvisorNet. So not specifically related to mentorship, but another service that American Corporate Partners offers. And as I mentioned before, I reached out to like 70 people on AdvisorNet. And there's also a forum, so I searched through all these people's questions, learned from other people's questions, so I didn't have to ask the silliest ones. And then, I reached out and I talked to probably 50 people through AdvisorNet. And so that was kind of sprinkled throughout the year. But I guess that to me was, just the flow of it. And then now that the internship is over, I moved into Manhattan. My mentor lives in Manhattan, so even though the mentorship ended, I still get in touch with my mentor. I've gotten coffee with her. And so I'm still in touch, which I think is phenomenal.
Great, thank you. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, no, Ashley. Andrew, did you by any chance have Mary Christian? Because your mentorship sounds a lot like mine. But to the T, to piggyback off of what Andrew said very well, my mentorship turned out to be this amazing relationship, one where I could confide in Mary some sage counsel on her part, whether it was my resume, getting ready for interviews, to the whole gamut of preparing for this transition. She did not have a military background, so helping me translate these skills, also validating that the healthcare industry was one that I knew I wanted to get into. It was my passion, and she, without her feedback and guidance, I would not be at Johnson & Johnson, as confidently and passionate as I am. So Mary, I actually met with her about 2 weeks ago, even though our formal mentorship ended last November. So it's about a year away, and Mary and I stay close. In fact, I reached out to her on how to best broach the asking my fiance's parents for her hand in marriage. So that's how valuable some mentorship can be with this American Corporate Partners. And to those in the audience, I just encourage you, what do you have to lose to have someone in your back pocket to bounce some ideas off of? The AdvisorNet, a warm introduction, a community of people that are willing to help you. I think you'd be remiss to not take advantage of this resource. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And Matt, I want to stick with you for a second. How did you balance your year-long mentorship experience with your work in your personal life, knowing that this is a year-long commitment and that you have to be available to your mentor and to make this partnership worthwhile? So how did you balance that personally?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ashley. And to be honest, I took the approach that this is a senior leader within a corporate position in a civilian industry, and her time, I believe, was definitely more valuable than my time. Here's someone who's willing to take time out of her day to speak with me, and for that, I was forever grateful, indebted to her. So my schedule, I was able to, whether it was in Colorado before physical training and she's at 7 a.m. and I'm at 5 a.m. just having a conversation, what she thought of my most recent rendition of my resume, or whether it was through emails, as Andrew mentioned, the balance of day-to-day work was actually surprisingly easy, and it was not a conflict. Most of our sessions were either through the day where I was able to step away, but also I believe all mentors, because they are there to help, would not mind either an after duty hours, so to speak, or before duty hours to connect with you this community is special, and the people participating in the ACP is special. So that's how I balanced it, Ashley.
Perfect. Thank you. Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I guess, before I mentioned that it was maybe every 3 weeks or a month that I have an hour-long call. So I don't think in of itself that's, particularly onerous requirement on someone, especially when you get such a great connection. And every call was really helpful and really interesting. And so I always look forward to them. And I don't think a couple of emails, 6 or 7 emails during the month was that difficult either. What I would say took a lot of time was really ensuring that I took her feedback to heart. And so whether it's editing your resume or reaching out to people, I think that did take up more time. But what I had mentioned earlier was this is really what you should be doing. Whether you have a mentor or not, you should be reaching out to people. You should be trying to understand the fields that you want to go into. And so American Corporate Partners gave me a phenomenal connection to help structure that. And even though it took some time in between the month, I think that's stuff anyone should be doing anyways. And this is just a real good way to own you in on what you want to do. Right. So in other words, I would have reached out to a whole bunch of people. I would have spent a lot more time writing LinkedIn messages that no one read. And this way I can reach out to someone on AdvisorNet or have Stephanie connect me with someone who's 100% going to respond because they know Stephanie. And so to that extent, I think I probably would have at least somewhat tried to do a similar process, but this let me do it much more efficiently. And so, it takes up a little bit of time, but honestly, I thought it was a phenomenal use of my time. So I didn't really have too much issue.
Great. Thanks for both of your input on that. And our final prepared question of the day before we go to our question and answers, which I see we have a lot of chatter going on in the box to our right, so that's great, is what advice would you give to transitioning service members when looking for career mentorship? And Tim, let's start it off with you.
Well, look, I can't tell you, we have over 80 Fortune 500 companies, right? Everything from General Motors, Home Depot, you name it, right? The most iconic brands in America. But a lot of our veterans, I have gunnery sergeants who come through here that don't have a bachelor's degree. They served 20 years in the military. They commanded tons of troops, managed budgets, built cities, but yet there's plenty of companies out there who won't even look at their resume without a bachelor's degree. And so having a mentor will open doors to you that you never even dreamed possible, right? So if you're feeling, these guys are such educated young men and they're on top of their game and I don't have a shot. Well, all of a sudden I give you the head of logistics for Home Depot or UPS because that's the space that you want to go into, and you don't have a bachelor's degree, but you're a qualified manager or a director. Somebody's going to pick up the phone and make a call for you. Sid Goodfriend founded this program, right? He was walking into the World Trade Center on September 11th, and the second plane flew over his head. And he felt from that point on he was going to do something to give back to America and to help our military because he knew our men and women were going to go off and put themselves on the front line. So as corporate America was moving up through the 5-10 years that our guys were fighting overseas, now they came back. It was imperative to Sid that our men and women were on the same playing field. And just because you didn't have a degree, you should have somebody within corporate America that can open those doors and maybe call down to HR and say, hey, this guy, you got to take a look at this guy's resume. You got to see what this young man or woman has done, and they really fit that. And so some of those things that we take for granted, that you'll never get this job, wait till you get a mentor from ACP. So I think that's really important to our veterans to understand that, don't pigeonhole yourself. So many of them come out and say, hey, I got a marketing degree, but I was a truck driver. And come on. The fact of the matter is that I can get you a mentor who's going to sit you down over a cup of coffee on a Saturday morning, virtually on the phone. And like they said, it's all about time management. This isn't Match.com. Our people put a lot of time and effort into making sure you got that perfect pair. Remember, I need my mentors to have a great experience also. So a lot of time goes in. We take all that into consideration. Who's looking for a job? Who's just looking to build out their network? And who's just looking to better acclimate in the job they have?
Great. Thank you for that. Matt, what about you? Same question.
Yeah, and the feedback to the people in the audience, I think you've already differentiated yourself by being a part of the IVMF, whether it's through Onward to Opportunity, you're kind of go-getters in this space. And I think if the number is correct, there's somewhat of 50,000 veteran resources available to you. So it's navigating what's meaningful and what would be impactful. Over the last 30 minutes, I think we've made our case with how ACP can help you. But in regards to mentoring, and this is great feedback I got from a gentleman at Bristol Myers Squibb, which made me reflect on, how I'm using mentorship and optimizing it. But who's in your board of directors? And by that, I mean, who can you go to, whether it's 5 to 10 people for candid feedback, and also feedback that you might not necessarily enjoy hearing. It could be people who are older, people who are younger, people within many different industries. And when I thought about that, immediately to my mind, I said, well, Mary is in my industry. She could be the CEO of my board of directors. But that is powerful mentorship advice, especially in your career transition, whether you're transitioning after 3 years or 30 years. I don't know if there's many people sitting in corporate America who would say, I got where I am by myself. So ACP is that direct intersect, and that's kind of some feedback that I give to the community tuning in today. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Matt. Andrew, how about you? What advice would you give to transitioning service members when looking for career mentorship?
So I guess one thing would be start pretty early, or at least start now, whether that's wherever you are in that transition process. And what I mean by that is you might not know exactly what you want to do, like I had mentioned earlier, but this is an opportunity to figure it out. And one thing I've recognized is if I say I'm going to sign up for something, then I'm going to sign up for it in a couple months. The couple months come by, and I say, okay, in a couple months I'm going to sign up for it. And by that point, you've already wasted a lot of valuable time. And so I recommend people, start quickly whenever they feel ready for it, because it's a phenomenal opportunity and one that you're going to get more of, the more time you put into it. And then related to that is, I'll take it really seriously. This is someone who has a tremendous amount of experience, who's volunteering their time to help you out. And I think by virtue of the way the program is structured, it's someone that's going to come into the mentorship having a very positive experience or a very positive view of you, right? They want to help veterans. They're doing this out of the goodness of their heart. And so if you go in there, you're serious, you take their feedback to heart, you reach out to people, you try to make the most use of it, then that's going to be someone fighting in your corner whenever you go onto the job market. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to give you a job, but they might introduce you to someone who's going to listen to their feedback. And they're going to say, Stephanie spoke very highly of this person. I'm going to, interview, I want to talk to them, I'm going to introduce them to someone I know. And so, start early and put a lot of effort into it, I think are probably the main things that I would recommend.
Great, thank you. All
Yeah,
great.
Can I just add just one thing?
Yep.
You see this, I just want to tell you, the viewers who are looking right now, take out your cell phone. Everybody's got a PDA, right? Take out your cell phone, go to this website as we're speaking. You're going to see there's a little red button. Once you go to our website, you'll see a red Apply Now button. Click that button on our website and put your email address. First of all, it's a proprietary system. You're never going to get an email from us asking you for anything. Remember, this is 100% free. Nobody's ever going to ask you for a dime from ACP. At the same time, you're never going to get some kind of sales item or anything else. So go to the website, put your email address in so that tonight, when you're sitting down, after you've gone through this and it's sent in, one of our team is going to send you an email reminding you that you sent an email today and fill out the application. It is a simple application that you are nuts not to take advantage of. Whether you're looking for a job or you're just looking to build out your network, if you served 180 days in active duty in the military post 9/11, you should take advantage of having somebody to be there who's non-judgmental, to bounce stuff off of. Like Matt was saying, building your own, I can't tell you how important it is to make sure that you have a LinkedIn account, that you're on AdvisorNet, building your own little personal board of directors, because without it, look, The fact of the matter is, most of you have been surrounded by nothing but military for the last 4 or 5 years, at a minimum. And you know, everybody wishes they had that uncle who was an executive VP at XYZ Corporation, but they don't have them, right? Most of our guys are in small town USA out of a trailer park in Tennessee who's now looking to make their break after spending 10 years serving this country. That's what this mentor is going to be there for you. They're looking to open up their network to you. They're looking to help you find meaningful employment. So like I said, you're nuts not to take advantage of it. So make sure you go to the website, you press, you know, take it from this old Marine, but hit that button, because for nothing, we'll give you somebody who's got 8 to 10 years experience in the career path of your choice to help guide you. And I'm telling you, I'm blessed to hear it day in and day out that these guys came here today. They're one of 3,100 this year alone who would love to be sitting in these chairs telling you the same exact story that they're telling you.
Great, thank you for that. And just to go off of that, I will be sending this recording to everyone who's viewing live and RSVP with the direct link to apply to ACP. So if you want to find out more information or apply, like Tim said, you will get that link directly emailed to you, so you don't have to worry about it. But that is all we have for the prepared questions today. And I saw we had a lot of back and forth with our group chat. So what I'm going to do is go through that, and I'll list out some of the questions, and then Matt, Andrew, Tim, whoever wants to feel free to take the floor, we can do that. All right, so the first one, I think I saw a few come in based on who was eligible for the program. Somebody asked, you know, after retiring from the military, if I've been out for a few years, and then someone else asked about military spouses as well. So I'm not sure if, Tim, you want to take that on who would be eligible for the program?
Sure. So as I was saying, all you have to have done is served 180 days in active duty post 9/11 to be qualified. We don't turn anybody away who served in active duty and got out under honorable conditions. The other end of it is our spouses program. We are so excited to announce that come November 1st, we will be kicking off our spouses program. The Department of the Army reached out to us a few months back and said, hey, look, you know, not that they're the most overlooked servants of this country are the military spouse. And so, like I said, November 1st, spouses will also be included in our program, and we can't wait to be able to work with the men and women who are spouses of our active duty serving military. The other thing is AdvisorNet. That's open to all veterans and spouses to go on. The guys have mentioned it. You know, it's linked into the military. It was built. General Petraeus came in here 7, 8 years ago, said to Sid, wow, at that point, I think we only had 400 or 500 men and women going through our program. It wasn't as big as it was today. And General Petraeus said, hey, look, 200,000 plus men and women are separating service. This is an incredible program. How do you open it up to all of them? And so AdvisorNet was born. So you go to our website, right at the top, you'll see a link, AdvisorNet. You click on that, and there are tens of thousands of advisors from every company in America who are waiting to connect, right? Because if you go on LinkedIn and you try to connect to somebody, they might connect with you, but the chance of them to start in a conversation with you or giving you opportunities within their company are 0 to none. It's a great opportunity to connect one-on-one, but you're not going to get that in-depth conversation that you might be looking for. As the guys will attest to, you go on AdvisorNet, the one thing I hear from our advisors is that not enough veterans actually reach out and ask them questions. They're looking to connect and to tell you, and they're not just our 80 corporate partners, they're every small company in America. And they're looking. All you have to do is put in your zip code, and you'll find all the advisors in your hometown. So like I said, if you left town, 10 years ago and didn't know what industries were there, what opportunities were there, you put in your zip code, you're going to find all the different companies that are there, the people that are looking to help you. You could send them a quick private message, say, hey, Mike, you want to have a phone call with me? I'd love to hear the opportunities at Joe's Tool and Die. And that guy will reach right back out to you and be excited to be able to do it for you. So make sure you take advantage of going on AdvisorNet also. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. So another question we have here is from James Dillon. He says, I work on a contract where my business day is dedicated to the customer. Do you find the mentors in the program are available outside of normal work hours? Whoever wants to take on that question.
Sure, I can answer that really quickly. So my mentor works in investment banking. Their work hours are like 7 a.m. to 11 midnight. And so that was usually a difficult time. I don't think she wanted to talk to me at 1 a.m. and I'm not sure I was that motivated to do it either. But we always found time on weekends. And so, definitely you work with the schedule. But my mentor was absolutely willing to work with me outside of a 9 to 5 time.
Great, thank you. All right, the next question we have says, for those of us who feel beat down by a bad fit in corporate America, could this be beneficial for small business founders?
So maybe just to connect to something that Tim was just talking about, I was on AdvisorNet a couple days ago, and I saw, so there's AdvisorNet, you can send messages to advisors, and there's also like a forum portion of it, and so people ask questions. And I saw a question around starting businesses, and it wasn't pertaining to kind of me, so I didn't dive into it, but I know there were like 10 answers on that. And so there's a lot of people who have a lot of experience in a whole bunch of different things, including small business founders who can answer that question and who are on there every day hoping to help someone. So I definitely think so.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny when the American Association of Orthopedic Surgeons called us up and said, Tim, we want to be partners with you guys. And the first thought was, what are we going to do with 25 or 50 orthopedic surgeons? I don't get that many veterans who are looking to go in that space. And then after about 5 or 10 minutes of kicking it around and sitting back, we realized, you're going to get 25 small business leaders, guys who understand QuickBooks, how to manage a staff, because they come out of school and they run their own clinics. They work within hospitals. They have so much to bring to the table. I have 75 mentors out of UPS. And so, right, as soon as I said UPS, everybody on the screen probably thought of a guy carrying a package in Browns. I don't think I have a single truck driver. I have everything from HR to cybersecurity to logistics, managerial experience, right? So that's what our companies bring. It's a whole nother aspect to the thought process of who you're going to get as a mentor and what they bring to the table. So your orthopedic surgeon could be your best small business mentor. And once our staff talk to you, the veteran, and talk to him, we learn what each brings to the table. And that's how we make those connections.
Also, Ashley, if I could.
Yeah.
Just to what Tim had alluded to earlier, the mentors themselves also help veterans in that soul searching process. So whether you're beat down in corporate America on your first fit, the AdvisorNet, the people there are meant to be sounding boards. And also their network, as Andrew also mentioned, becomes your network. So if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, well, there's someone who, just as Tim mentioned, might be an orthopedic surgeon, but also can provide that insight and feedback to anyone coming from any interest or curiosity. But also, their network becomes your network. So if you have someone in healthcare, I'd be interested if that individual out of 20 years of experience also doesn't know someone, if you now have an interest in finance or if you have an interest in HR or whatever function or sector or industry it might be. This is a great tool to utilize to find that, and I call it soul searching, but find your passion, find your fit in corporate America.
Great, thank you all.
I just want to add one more thing when it comes down to, we get mentors who actually say, give me the beat down guy who served his country and now he's not making out in corporate America, right? Because look, a lot of our companies in America have mentor programs within. And so guys join those mentors. But look, if I'm having a problem with my supervisor or I'm not getting along with the people I work with, am I going to talk to my senior leader from within my own company? No, I want somebody who's outside, who understands the industry, who understands they've been through it. They already made the mistakes. And they're non-judgmental. Our mentors come fully and they're looking to help those guys. So think of it in that sense. When you get a mentor here, when our OA or caseworker calls you within 24 hours of you signing up, make sure you're telling them that. Say, hey, look, I'm already out and I'm having a rough time. I'm looking for a mentor, because that's what our mentors are telling us. They're looking for you to help you, guide you through. Nobody wants you to leave that job you already took.
Ashley, I'm sorry. I also
No,
I want to take it one more step further.
That's great.
And just to reemphasize Tim and his staff. So at ACP, there's a depth of staff that are literally there to make sure that your mentorship is exactly what you're seeking. And I think the world of those people that are at that headquarters and working at ACP, because they are the product of their service. You know, they represent the ACP brand extremely well. And on the veteran lens, you know, if you're coming with a goal in mind to get exposed to whatever it's an industry or a function, you will definitely achieve that with the staff and the program at ACP.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Any last minute thoughts or feedback? All right. I think we're good.
And we closing this up?
We will in a second. Yep. I'm about to do the closing because I think actually most of the ACP staff have answered the rest of the questions. So
Listen, I just want to add one thing.
yeah.
I close everyone with this. I'm telling you, I'm blessed. I had 30 years at the New York Stock Exchange. I get to talk to CEOs every single day. They want you. They are dying to have veterans on staff. They know you have this great foundation, right? So let me tell you, you see this thing behind me, make sure, take it from me. I promise you that in a year, if you're not talking like these two guys who are sitting there, I'll do bends and thrusts on this floor, burpees to you new guys, until I turn purple. I mean, this really works. You know, so look, you're 24 karat gold as far as these companies. Go home, feel good about yourself, put Bruno Mars on, put your pajamas on, feel good about yourself, fill out this application, and give yourself the best treat you're going to give as you transition out or as you're out. I really can't emphasize that enough. And I just wanted to add that little thought, Ashley. Thank you so much.
Yes. No, thank you. And it looks like we're just about out of time for today, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Tim, Matt, and Andrew, thank you for all of your insight today. Elvis, thank you for helping monitor the YouTube chat feature and also the ACP team. Just to let all of our viewers know, this session will be posted on our IVMF VetNet page for future viewing access. So in the event you know someone who missed the live session or you want to go back to it or who will benefit from seeing it, please feel free to share the link. So I'll also be sending the recording link to all those who RSVP'd, as I mentioned earlier, in addition to the link where you can go to find more information or register. And just finally, I want to let you all know that our next VetNet is in about a week. It's on Friday, October 26th at 11 a.m. And that session will focus on protecting your small business from employment-based lawsuits. So be on the lookout for upcoming VetNets and additional emails, as our goal is to do these at least once a month. I hope everyone is having a wonderful October so far. So thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Ash. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Ashley. An absolute privilege.